evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live. It's your favorite automotive show where we talk about all things automotive. And I try to make it a little bit different than everybody else's stuff. And I bring on the people that are experts in their field to share with you what they do, why they do it, and why it might be important for you to know them. So this week, my special guest is Cathy Droz, and she's got some pretty cool stuff. You know, when you think about the market share that women hold in every single possible thing that anybody could even think about buying, it's really strong. But the problem has always been, for so many years, they're not treated the way they need to be treated. They're not necessarily treated with respect. So I figured, since I don't wear heels, I'm going to bring in this dynamo that does. So, Cathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I've been watching and following you on LinkedIn, so this is a thrill. Thank you. Thank you.
So, for the few people that might not know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, your background, because you got a lot of history.
And you sure wrote about it. Thank you. I'm going to hire you for PR. Thank you. There's different parts to where I am now, but quite honestly, brought up in New York. My father and my parents would buy a new car every year, trade in one, buy a new one. And my father was a New York salesman and a little bit tough. So my mother, by the time I was age 10, my mom said, I'm not going with dad anymore. You go with him and you learn how to buy a car. I'm tired of it. So at age 10, I started going every year with my father. And long story short, it went from, what am I doing here? And watching him negotiate, which I thought was horrible the way he did it, a little tough. And then at 17, I did go in and buy the family vehicle by myself. And the salespeople and the owner was surprised, not because I was a woman, but because I was so young. So from that age, I've always liked cars, not necessarily my brother could fix them. My dad knew nothing about cars except how to buy them, and I enjoyed that part of it. So let's fast forward. When it came time, I started a marketing agency, and my emphasis was auto dealers. I was very comfortable working with dealers, and turns out I've worked in male-dominated industries my whole career, and I never had a problem. So I couldn't understand when women would come to me and say, I'm not going to a dealer to buy a car. They don't treat me with respect. They're terrible, etc. After a long period of studying it, and I did not, I didn't go on Wikipedia and find out how to do something. I lived it and breathed it. I opened a marketing agency inside a dealership, and which is now, they were one of 9, and they are now owned by Berkshire Hathaway. So I got a good start. And that's really what it came down to. Then I said to women, this is crazy. I'm going to teach you how to buy a car with no fuss. So I wrote a book, Woman's Guide to Buying a Car with Confidence and Street Smarts. And it's not so much I teach women, I try and build their confidence. And I also, at the end of each chapter, I say, if I owned a dealership. And that is what got the attention of manufacturers and dealers alike. And then I went on to test drive cars. As you mentioned in my bio, I'm on number 625, I think. And that came from the one of the largest newspapers here in Arizona, liked the fact that there was a woman in the auto industry and asked if I would like to test drive cars for the newspaper and write about it, because normally men had that position. And I said, only if it can be fun. Otherwise, I'm not going to write about torque, and I'm not going to write about everything that you can find in, Motor Trend magazine. And from there, when you write a book and you're teaching women how to buy a car, and you tell them this is unacceptable and this will be better, that goes to deaf ears if you don't train the sales fixed ops department. So I started a training program, both online and in person, where I teach men and women what women want. And therefore, they know how to approach women, how women want the deal closed, how women want to be treated in general, customer service wise. And then there became a certification. I wanted to be like the J.D. Powers for women, the Good Housekeeping seal. So therefore, not all dealerships were accepted if they were interested. I pretty picky. So that's, and that led to other things. But you just ask me questions. I don't want to keep talking. Oh.
Then my wife came in and asked me if I wanted coffee.
Well, she can come in and wave, She doesn't have to just leave.
It's funny. She's laughing because when I'm the camera guy and the executive producer on her show, her weekly show.
Oh.
And sometimes, I make noises like I'm behind the camera, but I'll be eating something. And she says, you can't eat stuff while you're working the camera because people can hear. I'm like, no, they can't hear that. And then all the people chime in, oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we could hear you. So
we can hear you. Oh.
Now it's the flip side of it where she comes in.
And asks you. Well, good. Now you understand. I didn't hear a word. It's quiet.
Well, Cathy said she didn't hear anything, so no worries. All right, so the Woman's Guide to Buying a Car with Confidence and Street Smarts. Now, there's an old saying, we don't know what we don't know. And I've been in the car business for a long time, 41 plus years. Audience probably sick of hearing me say that. They probably know before I say it that I'm going to say it. But nonetheless, over those years, it's mostly been a male-dominated world on the sales side and also on the service side. Mm-hmm. So how can you know what's in somebody's head, in somebody's heart, if you're not part of that demographic? So a book like you wrote fits perfectly, as does the training that you give these folks, because how else are they going to learn it, right?
Well, and I agree, and that was the premise. I think, and Paul, this from your so few years in automotive, because I test drive cars, I get the cars from manufacturers. I don't get them from local dealers. They're delivered to my home. So the PR agency for, let's take Infiniti. So the PR agency for Infiniti, the OEM for Infiniti, the press fleet for Infiniti, they are all on board and they want Cathy Droz to drive that car and give their video, their opinion, etc. The manufacturers will also tell a group of dealers, again, let's use the Infiniti brand. They will say to them, you know what, you need to sell more cars to women, or you need to sell more cars to Latinos. You need to sell more cars, but they don't necessarily give them training other than bottom line, women, wear pink, women like that. Oh, come on, please. We're done with that. Sponsor breast cancer and you've got a car sale. That doesn't work. I studied how men and women think differently, and in particular in automotive, not retail, because we know how they think when they buy a dress or whatever. But It's different. When a man and a woman go into a dealership, it's completely a different mindset. And that is why dealers have such a poor reputation when it comes to women. And there's reasons why. Women, in particular, do not like all of these men and women standing outside the minute they get out of their car in a parking lot. But that seems to be the way they've done it for 50 years. So why change it? Where I suggest they do, if it's right for that dealership or that geographical location. There's so many things that need to take into consideration. So, and here's a good example. Went into a Toyota dealership that I did certify, but the first thing I do is a site inspection. And that is everything from smell, sight, and it's not just checking the bathrooms, but it's everything. And then I'll stand around and see how the salespeople get along, how they do this, that, and the other thing. And afterwards, I have a little chart, and I went to the general manager and I said, one of the things, the minute that your double doors open, you have a Toyota truck with larger, very large wheels, tires, not wheels, tires. And the smell of rubber is the first thing that you smell when you walk in. And that will turn off women. Smell does. They don't like to work with salespeople who smell like cigarettes.
Okay.
And this all comes up on the CSI when they want to know why they had a low CSI.
Sure.
I ask the real questions. They just they just circle a 6, and the dealer finds a different way to get them to change their number, or ask them, how can we make this better? What did we do wrong? I try and catch it before it even gets that far. And that's just from the physical standpoint of it. And men and women alike, it's not just men that don't know, but once you understand how men and women think differently, it changes how it works. And it's all customer service, all customer experience. And that's really truth. That's the truth. And you know that, Paul?
Oh yeah, I'm a big one on customer experience. And when you do the same thing over and over, you tend to develop internal systems for what you do. Sure, everything's written down and you've got your check sheets and things like that. But just that when you walk in, when those double doors open up and you see the whole picture,
right,
and you have an idea as to what that picture should look like in a perfect world. Okay. And here's the funny part. With all the years that I've got in the business, not once have I walked in and considered that view of the truck with the giant tires and the smell of rubber would turn anybody off.
right.
I kind of know it because I've smelled it for so many years, but at no time did I make the connection that, there's a percentage of my customer that's going to turn off right out of the gate. And first impressions, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. You know where that came from?
Don't tell me, probably somebody like Thomas Jefferson or something. Who?
The printing press back in the day.
Oh.
Before they went to print umpteen hundreds or thousands, however many pages of the newspaper that they're going to print or whatever publication it was, they had to make sure that the typeset, everything in the press was just so. And before they pumped out all these different prints, they made what was called a first impression. And after that first impression was made, they could then take a look at what was printed and kind of proof it to make sure there were no errors. If there were errors which showed up, it would tell them what they needed to fix in order to put something out that was quality content where everybody would say, "Ooh, look at that, they missed this or they missed that." So that first impression is how we got the term. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression because it's no longer a first impression. But in car sales, where it's the second most expensive purchase on the sales side, and when you look at the service department, fixed absorption is because the service department pays the bills that keeps the building open, maybe not during COVID and this false economy that we're in right now, but all that at one point is going to come to an end. And we'll go back to where we were before. So the number one, the second most expensive purchase in somebody's life can be turned off instantly by walking through those doors. Or if they don't know how to approach the customer in the service department, that's their moneymaker long term. So that's brilliant stuff. So right out of the gate, you come through with a triple play.
You're so sweet. But you bring up another good point, Paul. In the service department, I have found service advisors to be I really have not run into one that I felt should be replaced, to be honest with you. But what I did follow, and I spent a half a day working with, was, and I don't know what you call, so the minute you pull up, I'm talking about a Lexus dealership now that is certified. And the minute that you pull up, these two young men come running out to say, "Do you have an appointment?" They've got a clipboard, etc. And I found, and I think it was because they were young, I found that they needed to know their audience. Lexus is a product that ranges from age 55 on up, and it's mostly women, including me, who drives an RX 350. What can I tell you? I thought to myself, what's that?
I had 3 ESs, loved the cars.
There you go. So I watched them, and as much as they smiled, they didn't engage. And I think that's where it comes from, a generation that is very digital conscious. I see it in my own grandchildren, etc. So their contact, although they smiled, they didn't know how to conversation. Older people, and I mean 55 and above, tend to want to engage in conversation, but so I went back to the owner and I said, here's what I would change, including, so many of them bring their pets. I think in the service drive, you need to have a water, water bowls and some biscuits to hand out. And
never seen that either.
Do it. He did it the next day. But I also said that I think the first impression, you come into that service drive and these two young boys are just ready to sign the papers. Here you go. And they really wanted engagement because I kept teasing them. I said, why don't you not only tell them where they can get a cup of coffee? You don't have any more people pulling in. Ask if you can get them one.
Right.
Do they want cream and sugar? And they were like, really? I said, yeah. You have no idea what a difference that would make in repeat customers. So to your point.
Now, speaking of engagement, we have Jeff Daniels says, respect every gender. Their time, their ability to bring you more business should be an easy button, but it still isn't, or it isn't still. Yeah, he's right on. He hit it right on the head.
Jeff knows.
He's not, and it's because we don't know what we don't know, right? The thing with the having the cookies there and a bowl for the dog, that's another thing I've never seen in any store ever. Sure, we've had the dog that was a part of the dealership be there and hang out on the showroom floor.
That's nice.
But at no time did anyone put out a welcome bowl for the pet.
Yeah. But maybe, and it is because, okay, so here's you guys are making, and Mr. Daniels too, a good point is, if you think of what the percentages of dealers that are owned by men and or general managers and general sales managers by male, certainly outnumbers the females, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, for instance, you own a dealership. I go in, I introduce myself, and I tell you a little bit about the HER certified program. And one of the first things, because the first thing that I am not a vendor. I go myself. I make sure I have an appointment. I don't stand around hoping I can talk to someone. The first thing, I think they're taken aback that there's even a program and that I can teach it. And the first thing they'll say is, you know what, Cathy, that's great, but we don't have any problems with women. And that's when I pull out their Yelp and I say, I don't know if that's true. I've had 2 complaints about your dealership, because I'm not going to go in and, say, not know what I'm talking about. That's right. For sure.
Always.
And then there's a part of an embarrassment on their part. And then after that, I have to say to them, but you have to take the course as well, the general manager and general sales manager, because after I'm gone or after they're done taking the test, who's going to make sure that it's taken care of, that they really are doing it and that they're reminded by it. So I always ask that there be a concierge basically assigned to the project, and a dealership that says I am in is great, but there will be pushback where they go, oh, I don't have time, Cathy, to follow up. I'm already babysitting these people to begin with. Well, they're probably not a good match. So the ones that do engage and go, I want to learn, I love when a dealer is taking notes and goes up on the bulletin board and repeats something I've said. And their success rate, I believe, proves it, because after a general manager left one Honda store and went to another entity, that GM said, I'm not interested in your program. And I look at the numbers, they've gone down. And I know, when I get complaints from women now, it's what's funny, Paul, is I literally, because of my social media and people who know me in the industry or bought the book, my phone is there, email, whatever you want to do. I do get emails and phone calls from women, and they want to tell me about their bad experience. And my question is, how can I help you? Do you want me to make sure your deal gets unwound? How can I help you? And it's usually, I'm so frustrated, I will never shop there. And here's where women and men are different. The woman says, I'm telling all my friends. And it's a fact. Women will tell 9 people who tell 9 people. And before you know it, you've got, 27 women who are never going to shop at your Toyota store. With men, they're embarrassed. So they don't really tell anybody. I got a great deal. Don't worry about it. That type of thing. They're not going to, they might complain to you personally, Paul, at that moment, but they don't go around telling all their male friends.
Or they'll just blow you up online where it's the safety of their keyboard.
Right. They'll blow you up online, etc. So I encourage women I've seen sales turn around. So if I don't feel I'm be treating properly, I've never had a problem, and the nicest way possible is to go over to the receptionist or whatever and say, may I speak to your customer service executive, or may I speak to the general manager? What's it about? I want to improve your service. I'm not here to complain. But I've always done, it doesn't matter. I could be at Starbucks, God forbid, since my family owns a coffee shop, my son and daughter-in-law, but I would be at.
I won't tell them.
Don't tell them. So I could be at Starbucks and feel like the woman next to me wasn't treated properly. I never get upset. I don't threaten. That's not it. It's constantly educating and pointing out maybe where that could have gone better.
I like I'm not here to complain. I'm here to help you improve. Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's always been my motto.
Because it's rare that somebody takes the time to compliment real quick for somebody to complain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like to compliment too. That's the nicest thing you can do. It really is. It makes someone's day.
Yeah. Kenneth Dunner Jr., our friend from Sugar Land, Texas, says, Paul, the smell of rubber gets to you. And then he's got a bunch of laughing face emojis. No, it doesn't really bother me because I've smelled it for so many years. Right. As a matter of fact, I used to go to the drag races in Englishtown, New Jersey, Raceway Park, and my buddies and we would go camp out at the Summer Nationals, and we'd be there for the weekend. Everybody would get burnt to a crisp from the sun, and we would just have a great weekend. So fast forward decades later, I said to my wife, I haven't been to the drag races in a long time. I'd like to go, and I'd like you to go with me. So why don't we go? So I bought the tickets. We went to the Summer Nationals a few years ago. And speaking of the smell of rubber, I'm glad I wore a black shirt, which is probably not smart given the heat, but because we had really good seats just outside the pits. And what I didn't realize was, because it had been so many years, that when they're in the staging lanes and they're doing the burn-offs to warm up the tires, okay, all that rubber's got to go somewhere.
Right.
So guess where it goes? It goes in the stands. So talk about the smell of rubber. And we had literally rubber on our clothes. I mean, I could see the black spots from the rubber literally on our clothes. And we were in the bleachers. That's how much. So yes, Kenneth, that day the smell bothered me a little bit. But you know what? If I owned a dealership and I didn't know that something I did was turning off a good chunk of my customers, I would be the first one to rearrange things so that it would be a more inviting thing. And we've got Jeff Daniel says, my service staff is 60+% female. Both my managers are female, and I have 2 female service techs, one of them master certified. I do understand it. Yes, you do, my friend. But that's not the majority of the stores.
No, that isn't. Good for Jeff, but that is not the majority. And I don't know if it's not even the dealer that doesn't want to hire women. It's unfortunate, and of course he knows this. It's difficult to find. We're trying to encourage more and more women to go to these tech schools and to learn. It's a great profession, pays well, but good for Sugar Land. That's not Jeff, right? Is Sugar Land?
No, that's Kenneth Dunner Jr.
That's Kenneth, who likes the smell of rubber. Okay. But Jeff knows.
Ken says he says that's not what I meant. What I mean. All right, Ken, it's a family show. Let's keep this clean now.
Yeah, exactly.
He says,
Oh,
when we
gosh.
all know better, we all do better. Savor the flavor of that. Yeah, I like this guy. He's
Yeah.
hysterical. He's hysterical. We had a conversation on the phone that was quite comical.
Well, we got to have fun in this business, Paul.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that's that's some great stuff right out of the gate, and it's not. A lot of women don't want to go into the business because, and I've worked with a lot of great people, but I've also worked with a couple of horrible people. And I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
I recall one day it was in 1989. I was working at a Volvo, Oldsmobile, and Mazda store. Okay. And I was in total disbelief at what I heard one of the salespeople ask the finance manager, Christine. I was shocked at what he asked her. I'm not even going to repeat it on the air here.
Okay.
But, well before the days where HR would march people to the door instantly for some of the behavior that has gone on for so many years. And I'm afraid that has a good chunk of that has stayed with the business. So that I would imagine that there probably are a lot of women that say, nah, you know what? I know how those guys are at the dealership. I don't need to put myself in that situation. So yeah. So
Paul, what I've seen happen is, and I've been in the business long enough to have seen when I call it the good old boys back in the day. And it was not unusual for women in the dealership to be harassed because they didn't hold necessarily the highest positions that they do now in many cases. And I understood, would never be one of those people that would tolerate it, but I did understand where some of the younger women are afraid they're going to lose their job. So, they take it, they giggle, they laugh about it, and, and some participate. But, I've had women call me that work at dealerships, and I'm going back 10 years, not recently, where a receptionist was there late at night and called me and said, one of the GSMs cornered her in the ladies' room, and I won't go into that either. So I said, well, okay, you got to get out of there. I'll come get you, whatever the case may be. And she said, no, I'm so afraid I'm going to lose my job. I go, no,
horrible thing.
Right. But here's the flip side. I had him fired. I didn't work there. Remember, I'm an agency. Right. I mean, I'm independent, but I did have him fired because the owner said, whatever you say. And he stalked me for the longest time that I had to get some form of protection myself. Yeah. So those days I think are gone. I do have to say that. In my experience with all the dealers here, yes, some of it goes on. If women are going to allow it to happen,
right,
or they feel that they don't have any other choice, they're not right for the job. But I find more and more women, it's about not having equal pay more than it is actual sexual harassment now, where a finance woman said, why is my counterpart making more money than me? And forget the commission part of it, more money than me. Well, that's something you need to discuss. That's something. So this is where I find that there's more complaints from employees, female employees, and less from the harassment. I think women have started to stand up a little bit more for their rights, and they're definitely good in sales. They're great in fixed ops. Certainly, Mr. Daniels will tell you that. Again, it's customer service. They do a great job, and I think I've never had a problem. And so I've worked with the police, the NFL, the wrestling industry, and automotive, and I feel like I've not been, the minute I've said, okay, I don't, this, hey, Cathy, can I tell you a dirty joke? No, but thank you for asking first. I appreciate it. It may turn that negative into a positive. And then if they just go, oh, what a prude, I don't care. You're not going to do that, because that only leads to one other thing. So it's just, It's interesting. So in the book, I'm trying to build confidence in women because I feel like if they can negotiate a car deal, they can negotiate almost anything in life: divorce, loss of a child, husband, parent. I just feel like the confidence needs to be there.
Yeah.
And then you're okay. And you don't have to be mean and obnoxious. Just have to be confident and, say what you mean what you say.
You're right about that because I have two daughters.
Oh,
and from birth till now, I've always told them life boils down to a car deal. Right? Everything's negotiable.
I like
Everything.
that.
And so when you say, you teach them the car deal, yeah, that's a life skill right there. There are so many good things that come from that. I've got a comment from Peter Collins. This gentleman has been in the business a long time. He's a trainer. He's got a very large group, I think just shy of 10,000 people on Facebook. So I'm honored to have him here this evening. He says, I love the live content, Paul and Cathy. Greetings from Australia. Over many decades now, whenever I provide in-house SME and corporate sales training, I try and add on additional day to train male salespeople. And I open that first segment of the day with, today I want to share with you the way women sell naturally and we men need to be taught. But before I do that, you need to understand that women have the uncanny ability to communicate with every generation, children, teenagers, adults. Yeah.
I like this man. Does he need me to fly to Australia? I'm open.
I have no idea what time it is in Australia. Huh.
Oh my gosh. Well, he must like you. He stayed up or it's yesterday, one or the other. But that was very nice of him to write that. And how smart of a man he is.
He's been in the business a long time. The longer you're in something, you pick up a few things along the way. And, like I said, you're always learning. I learned some stuff here from you tonight after many decades in the business. So, Peter, thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for that comment.
Thank you for that comment, sir. I think I've probably learned more from being with the NFL and being with the wrestling. The wrestling was so interesting to me because I love to do interviews. Yeah. And when I say before I went into the ring, please know that I was not wrestling. I was the announcer. So before I went into the ring, I spent about 2 hours and these are the older wrestlers, when, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think, even
Bill Mascaras.
Would that have been, okay, so.
The Mexican guy with the 1,000 mask or something.
Yes. Oh, yes. And the gentleman that I was doing this work for, his best friend was Andre the Giant. He used to be in charge of him. And his dad, Sabaldi, his dad was the first WWF title holder back in 1917 or whatever. And he fought against Vince McMahon's dad. So they grew up in the business together. Neither here nor there. You look at these wrestlers, you think they're as tough as anything. And all they wanted to talk about in the interview was their children and the community involvement they had. And so when they say that wrestling is acting, yes. And they're great athletes, as you probably realize.
Now, hold on one second. The comment, Peter Collins' comment, it went on, but it doesn't show me on the platform that it went on. So let me just look up on Facebook because he's coming through Facebook.
Okay.
Let me see if I could spot the comment there because it's not telling me the whole thing because he asked me to please read the rest of the comment. And the comment did not come through fully on here. So let me go in. I'm assuming it's on his page.
Sure.
That is, so just bear with me here.
It's probably because he wants me to fly over there, and that was the rest of the comment.
Hey, Peter, in which page are you viewing this just so I know, because it doesn't tell me. I share it in about 5 or 6 different places, different Facebook areas. And then from there, I share it to different groups. And it didn't show me the entire comment in the StreamYard platform. So I kind of need to know which page you're viewing it on so that I could see that whole comment. The only thing with streaming in multiple areas is that if you stream in 5 places and somebody comments in this place, it may not show up in this place.
I don't know how you do this, Paul. Eesh.
Or if it'll show up in the StreamYard platform, but depending on the length of the comment, it cuts it off in the platform here. So it is not even like I can click anything to see more.
I see.
I just don't see the entire comment. So Peter, if you would be so kind to let me know. Oh, here we go. Oh, smart guy. He copied the rest of it and pasted it here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So he says, here's the rest of the comment. Women have the uncanny ability to communicate with every generation, children, teenagers, adults, the more mature as well as grandparents. We men need to learn how to communicate with one generation at a time before we understand how to blend the generations, but still don't come close to the way women communicate naturally. It is also the reason that women are now outselling men in most industries that concentrate on specific and unique kinds of selling. Yeah, that's wow.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's right. But you know what, Paul, that's interesting too, because the comments that I get for doing the videos with my granddaughter are definitely that generation. And I realize she's Gen Z. Yeah. Which is, she was born in 2010, and that's exactly when that's the cutoff, 2010, and then obviously 2000 and whatever. Yeah. And I think to myself, it is important to understand each generation in sales and marketing. And I did notice, I don't have the exact stats, but during COVID, when people were starting to do more of contactless buying, yeah. And they were calling the dealership instead of going there, etc. And I kept saying, you've got to do video of show the customer, do video. If they want to have a bench seat and not captain chairs, make sure you show them the color, etc. The guys would go, oh, we got it, Cathy, the young guys. So there was a statistic out there that 50 and older men and women, let's say, who've been in the business for 25 years, let's take Cadillac dealership, for instance. Yeah. All of a sudden, all this technology was too much for them. They didn't want to learn it. They didn't necessarily care to work with younger people who were up on all of it, and they left the industry. So now we're also looking for a more digitally conscious, I think, but you've got to have a little bit of everything. Sure. You definitely do. And probably Mr. Collins, I don't know if he realizes this, but one of the things that I suggest to manufacturers / dealers is the up system is great for the dealer and obviously for the salesperson who now it's their turn. The up system, I don't feel serves women in particular. And the reason is when I walk into a dealership, or I'll say to a woman, you walk into a dealership. Now, Paul comes up to you, and Paul doesn't know a lot about technology, but boy, he can figure out, the engine and everything else. We should be able, men and women should be able to choose without hurting anyone's feelings. I could say, I'd like to work with a woman. And that's what happens at my HERS certified dealerships. They'll go in and they say, the receptionist, I'd like to work with a woman. I've heard that. Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Say that. But if I want to know more about the technology and somebody my age comes up to me, I'm going to ask them first before we even start, how does it go with the tech? Do you know everything? Oh, yeah. I might rather work with a young person who has that background. I have a right as a consumer to ask for it instead of just getting, and I don't want to say just getting the up, but if I get a green pea and I don't have the time, right. I want to be able to say that. So that's just. No, that reminds me, I one time, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I was going to the dentist, and my regular dentist
there was something going on. And this other dentist came in, relatively new dentist. I mean, he made Dookie Howser look like an old guy. Okay. And I said, listen, nothing personal.
Right.
But I would prefer to have somebody more, my generation will say, take a look at this mouthpiece. No, nothing personal. I'm sure
Right.
you were probably at the top of your class, but I'm just not comfortable, and I would like that. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying. I've heard it at the store level where people have requested a specific person, because you're right. You know, what the whole sales thing has flipped on its head, right? It's not about what's in it for me, because let's face it, the customer doesn't care about me. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
Right.
They shouldn't have to care about me. What they should care about is, before they spend $40,000 plus on a car, they should feel as though they're communicating with somebody that's on their level, whatever level that may be, or
Right.
whatever level they choose, not an up system where maybe you get somebody that they prejudge me or they prejudge you, and then maybe they don't even want to work with us.
Right.
And the store, in its effort, however well intended to be fair, creates an oil and water environment where that deal is just never going to happen.
You hit the nail on the head. So here's the thing. If you want your CSI to be stellar, that's one of the elements. If you would let the customer almost choose who they're going to work with, now you've already started on a good start. Because how many, and this women in particular are guilty of this. They will go through the process and maybe buy the car from Paul. The whole time they really haven't liked you, Paul. No offense. Of course, everyone would love you. But so they go through this process, and they're in the back of their mind, they're going, Paul is way too short with me. He doesn't talk to me enough. I don't understand. And then what happens is they buy the car. Maybe they got the price they wanted, but when they fill out the CSI form, because they didn't have the relationship with you, it's a lower score. It is. CSI is so important, and that is basically why I started this. I wanted to know why women were giving lower grades than men. And Porsche Corporate, through a friend, said, tell your know-it-all Cathy Droz, ask her to do know-it-all. That was great. Said, tell her, we want to know. Here we are, a man and a woman walk into the same Porsche store, and they were referring to Penske. They walk in the same Porsche store. They buy the same exact vehicle. They pay the same price, have the same salesperson, same time of day. The men give a 10, the woman gives an 8. And he said, tell her if she could call me in a week, I'd appreciate it. And I said, don't hang up. I've got it now. So the man, nothing wrong with it. He already knew exactly what he wanted, what he was going to pay. He is so excited by the fact, just the exhaust fumes alone have intoxicated him. He's got his Porsche. He is the happiest man in the world. He circles 10. The woman, equally as excited, went into the ladies' room and they were out of soap. Or she went over to have a cup of coffee and there was creamer on the side of the grill work or whatever it is. It's so interesting to know what triggers that female to not give a 10. So if you can start off on the right foot, having the right match for your salesperson or fixed ops, whatever, you're already on good ground. And then they feel they've picked you, so they're gonna like you, right?
Right,
so
right.
That's the psychological part.
Yeah, no, that's key. Kenneth Donner Jr. says tonight's conversation is so damn scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly tasty good. Thank you, Kenneth.
Good.
Ron Usher says, hi, Paul and Cathy. Ron Usher is my friend who is the first retired master tech that I've ever known of, because I didn't know anybody retired from this business. I thought we just until
we need him back. We need him back. No retiring.
I was joking with him for the longest time. I said, Ron, you're never going to retire because nobody retires from this business. And he actually did. So God bless him and congratulations.
That's congratulations. Yes.
And it looks like my friend Gloria Vincent says, I'm on now. It came through as Facebook user, but after a few comments, she signed it GV, which is Gloria Vincent. She says, I'm hearing about Cathy saying car dealers should show things, especially during COVID. I mean, meaning to see things online. I'd prefer a young person either for dentist or car dealer. Why? A young person gets better teachings / learnings than an older person, while an older person thinks they know it all. LOL. Okay, I'm out. Winky face, Gloria Vincent. Well, you know, there's two parts to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's, you know, I've always believed there is no substitute for experience. That's just what it is ingrained in me. Yes, on the one hand, a new person is just out of school, has the latest teachings, has the latest knowledge and all this stuff. But the one thing that person does not have is the actual physical experience in performing that. And I have personal horror story with that, which I'm not going to get into here, but will impact me probably for the rest of my life. So,
Wow.
You know, there are two sides to that.
Yeah.
I agree. You can have the latest training, the newest person, but it's just like, you know, two sea captains. One is this old codger that's been around forever, and the other one is fresh out of naval school, and they both get hit with this massive storm where the boat's going like this, and, you know, take everything you know about stabilizers and throw it out the window. I'd rather be with the salty sea dog that's navigated through this stuff for a long time than the person that might be overwhelmed because it's something that they've just experienced now for the first time. Book smart is not necessarily street smart or, you know, smart through experience in having done something many times.
No, and I agree with you. And your analogy is excellent. I probably compare it to the, I remember when the airlines needed pilots many, many years ago. They were, you know, very much like difficult now.
Yeah.
They were not. A friend of mine flew during Vietnam, and they were looking for military pilots, but the co-seat was going to be the young computer crazy. What a great combination, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to be in that plane. Because if something goes wrong, I know that Vietnam guy's going to know how to get out of it in the computer one. So yes, that is absolutely true. So I guess I am the old person, and I like to be accompanied by someone very digitally savvy. That's for sure.
Now, you know, we got hit by the pandemic, and in our business, and I'm probably going to be an outlier here, but our business hasn't seemed to be willing to buy into some of the stuff. And one of the things I'm talking about in particular is masks, right?
Yeah.
I don't really care what one's feeling is, pro, against, whatever the case may be, but as the mask relates to the customer.
Correct.
And the woman customer in particular, you know, you had shared something with me, how women feel about when they walk into a store or choose not to walk into a store because of that.
That's true. Probably around April, Arizona just started we were doing fairly well. And I'm going to say about Easter time or a little bit later, all of a sudden our numbers went up here in Arizona. And I got 2 phone calls 2 days in a row. One saying, Cathy, I took your recommendation and I was going to X Toyota dealership, but I walked out. No one had a mask on. So typical what I say, women, instead of going to the front desk and saying, why you're not wearing masks or what is the reason there's no mask? She said, I walked out and I told my neighbor, I will never go there, don't wear a mask. And I thought, okay, well, good point. I'm sorry you walked out though. You didn't even give them a chance to put a mask on. You don't know, maybe they had them. So another complaint, different, it was an Audi store was the next one. But
Yeah.
I called the Toyota store and I said what had happened. He was so upset. He had no idea that was going to make a difference, whether a man or a woman. He
Yeah.
said, and I said, who knows how many walked in and walked out you don't even know about. So he said, okay, I'm ordering 1,000. And that's what, and I said to him, I said, well, don't just order 1,000 plain ones. Get your logo on it, because everyone that wears it then is a walking billboard for you. He goes, okay, good. Well, I don't mind telling him I don't work for him.
Right.
He's a client, so to speak, so I want to help. But these are the type of things that you get so caught up in your dealership or any business. You know, you're almost blinded to outside. You read in the news, you know, hey, they're suggesting you wear masks. The governor says wear masks. People are, you know, getting sick and dying, and etc. But he never thought to make it kind of mandatory. And he later told me, he said, not one, young, old, didn't matter. No one objected. They want the sale. They want,
Right.
and they want to keep their clients safe. That is what we were doing, right? Keep your clients safe. So it's those type of things. I also found during COVID how slow many dealers were to pivot, lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I don't know if getting now you got to remember too, here I am in Arizona, the home of Carvana, the home of, you know, we've got Barrett Jackson here, Russo Steel. We have got Lucid Motors just opened up their big in Casa Grande, Arizona, and we have a very large presence of Tesla. We are in the middle of a very digital, and Vroom did a number on these dealers for New Year's Eve. So you're seeing that this is, people are now saying themselves, okay, I'm going to order from Carvana. Okay, let's get the word out there that you can do what they do. You will deliver vehicles. You will. And I just found them to be so slow. A couple picked up, and I kudos to them, but maybe some of the software is too expensive for a 1 or 2 point dealership. But, you know, we've got Berkshire Hathaway here. We've got Penske. We've got, so I've never even, Paul, I wasn't even aware, Lithium Motors just bought 2 dealerships here. You hear who's, you know, AutoNation buying out this one, etc. They've got to know they've got to be able to turn like that. They can't stay in the dark ages forever. This is the future. I don't think it's going back, Paul, to
No.
I think there'll be the hybrid.
I agree with you.
I don't think it's going back. And I don't know about you. I'm old school, so I like to touch, feel, all those things with a car.
Yeah.
But even my friends who called me and said, I'm looking for this car, I'm looking for that car, and I would recommend a dealer or a used. I can't tell you how many had that Carvana truck pull up with their vehicles on it. And what am I going to say?
Here. It happened here. For the first time, I've been living here for 10 years, Cathy, and for the first time ever this year, this is what pulled into the complex twice.
Wow. Yep. Oh yeah. It's just phenomenal. And I think people now have just learned they're shoppers. They go on, they're checking out the pricing. There's more ability to know what a vehicle looks like. So they read up on it. So they're willing to do that. And Carvana now is doing a better job. You know, they're giving them more than 3 days to figure out if they like the car. But when out of my, just in my family alone, my immediate family during COVID, they bought 3 vehicles from Carvana.
Wow.
My own family.
Wow. And here's the killer.
What's that?
Here's the killer.
Yes.
This is nothing new. This is nothing new. The only thing that's new is that you can complete the transaction online. But let me tell you something. 20 years ago, I was shipping cars all over the country and some of them overseas. And you know how I did it then? I did it old school. I FedExed paperwork. You know FedEx, remember those envelopes?
Oh, yeah.
I FedExed paperwork. They signed it. They had the signature notarized. They put it in the self-addressed returned FedEx overnight envelope to me. Once I got the documents back from the client and the check was either the wire transfer was verified or the certified bank check that was enclosed within the envelope, once that cleared and the funds were in the dealer's account, at that point I would get on the phone or online even then and consign the transporter to come pick up the vehicle in Westport, Connecticut, and take it either to the port in New Jersey, where it would sit before it got onto a container to take it to Oslo, Norway, or whether it went to Arizona and California. Arizona and California was a big place for leasing companies because you could register a car. I believe it was Arizona. This is a few years back. But instead of paying like $2,000 in taxes, something like that, they paid $600 and change in taxes in order to get a car registered and plated. So
that
I was
could have been our state or Nevada. Yes, so you were doing it, and you were doing it more or less manually, etc. Then came the fleet departments, and they did things quicker, right? But everybody thought you had to have a fleet of 50 vans, which was not true. The internet department, and isn't that all that it is right now? It's the internet department, etc. Right. So I wanted to make sure that this Lexus dealership, everything, because I told you that I did the ebook, How to Buy a Car in Your Pajamas, from dealer to driveway. And there's my granddaughter in red pajamas with her feet up ordering a vehicle on the cover. And that was to let people know. I wanted dealers to be able to order it and send it out, digitally to their customers to let them know we're not going to let Carvana and Vroom, get ahead of us. I recommend they did advertising and marketing to show, we've done it. We can do it here. And some of them gave it a name, etc. But if they haven't caught on to that and they haven't let their customers know that they can do that, you're right. They've been doing it really all along, and now it's personally dropping it off. And I have a whole bunch of really cool ideas what to do when they deliver the car so that they continue to get the business from them. But I'm not sharing them with them. I'm waiting for Mr. Collins to send me to Australia. And then I'm going to share with him.
Well, I would be happy to go on that trip as well. So okay. Peter, if you're listening, I would say send us the information so we could book the trip.
That's right.
Get a couple of comments here. Let's see here. Ron Usher says, I was asked many times by the salesperson to talk to a customer many times to assure them that the used car was checked out, and even asked them if they would like to see the car on the lift with me. Customer first, trust, 100%.
Very good, Ron.
Says, don't underestimate or undervalue the new captain's knowledge, Gen Z. No, you know what? There's pros and cons. The one thing I love about life is there's no one right answer to every single scenario.
Correct.
I may have a bad experience with something, but that doesn't mean 999 other people are going to have the same experience.
Right.
My opinions are formed by my experiences, but yeah, it's a valid point.
No, that's true. It's like the movies when people say, "Oh, don't go to that James Bond movie. It stunk." I'm still going.
I'm right with you on that one. All right, so hey, Lamont's catching on here. It comes through as LinkedIn user. He says, "Hello from Hanford, California. It's Lamont." How are you, Lamont? Great to see you, man. And Mark Williamson, many dealers are following the customer's lead on mask in combination with respecting their employees' personal beliefs. If the customer is wearing a mask, you should follow their lead. If not, use your personal choice. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Definitely.
Speaking of points, every week this happens. An hour, which is 60 long minutes, poof, happens just like that.
Isn't that something?
So well, I want to thank you so much for spending your Sunday night with us and sharing all the information that you've shared. I would like you to, when after the show, if you go back on LinkedIn in the post, put your contact info, because like I always tell people, I always remember what I forgot to ask after I've had the opportunity to ask it. So by putting your contact info in there, whatever you feel comfortable with, whether it be phone, email, what have you, please do that, so that I'm sure somebody's going to have a question or two. That way they can reach out to you. And Peter Collins says, Paul and Cathy, you can't come to Australia yet. We are still in lockdown for one more week. Let's see what we are allowed to after that. And Mark Williams says awesome show. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. Cathy, stay on after we log off here for just a moment. So ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for supporting the show. If you think there's somebody in your community online that would benefit from this, I would appreciate you sharing the show with them, because as my buddy Paul Machine from Black Book says, a rising tide lifts all boats. So thank you. Brian Cates says great content. Ron Ushers with the multiple thumbs up. And on that note, have a successful and safe next week. And we'll see you on, we'll see some of you at Digital Dealer next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Hope to meet some of you there. Please look for me if you're there. And again, thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Bye-bye.